All right, welcome back to the Now Morning Show here on a TTT. I am Natalie Legore, and of course, you're inside the Now Morning Show, and we are going to be looking at National Child Abuse Prevention Month, which is celebrated in April, and of course, the work being done in the ministry, the Office of the Prime Minister, through the Gender and the Child Affairs Division, and of course, the minister in the minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Ayanna Webster-Roy, is here to speak with us about it. Good morning to you, Minister Webster-Roy.
Hi, good morning, Natalie. Good morning to Trinidad and Tobago. It's a pleasure to be on the Now Morning Show with you.
Thank you so much for being with us here. I don't know why I'm getting these tongue twisters this morning. So, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, do we call it a division?
You could call it a division, yes.
Right. So let's talk. I mean, National Child Abuse Prevention Month is celebrated in April. What has the Office of the Prime Minister through that division done so far?
So, as you know, Natalie, as Trinidad and Tobago would know, this administration would have instituted National Child Abuse Awareness Month, and we'd have been observing it for quite a while. And what we try to do is, during this period, we try to ramp up our public education and sensitization efforts to ensure that all of Trinidad and Tobago is aware that child abuse is indeed a prevalent problem, and also that persons would learn the skills to be able to identify signs of child abuse, as well as know what to do in instances of child abuse.
Yeah.
Naturally, before we get into this discourse, I want to reveal something that is very troubling. Just recently, the Office of the Prime Minister, in collaboration with UNICEF, would have conducted a local study. And that study would have revealed that 78% of adults said that they would not report instances of child abuse if you're aware of it, because it is not their business.
Wow.
I want all of Trinidad and Tobago to know that child abuse is everybody's business. We don't live in silos. It may not be happening in your home, but it may be happening in your community. And even though it may not be happening in your community, it is everybody's business, because our children today are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. And it's important for us to ensure that we create the environment that is necessary for children to thrive, so they grow up to become responsible adults and meaningful contributors to our national development process. I just wanted to share that bit of information with you.
I am really surprised to hear that,
Sorry,
though.
Go ahead, Natalie.
No, I'm saying I'm really surprised to hear that it's 78% of adults say that they wouldn't report it. Now, if 78% of adults are saying that, and last year between January to October, we had over 2,000 reports, how much more would we have if adults were getting more involved?
And you see, that is the problem. In 2020, we would have recognized that there was a 35.8% increase in reports of child abuse. And that would have equated to some 4,940 reports of child abuse in Trinidad and Tobago. Naturally indicates that even though the government is doing its part, even though we have a vast majority of responsible Trinbagonians doing their part to combat child abuse, that the problem is still prevalent. We would have launched our national child policy. And as a ministry with responsibility for children, we've always found it important to ensure that our children are involved. And that is why at the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, we have been working with children so that they become part of the response, that they help to lead the response, and they help to educate and empower each other, so that together, children working with adults, working with the state, we can indeed combat this problem. But what it calls for, and it's something I say even as we refer to domestic violence, what it calls for is for individual responsibility, for persons to recognize that change begins with the individual, and making a decision, deciding to do what is right and what is correct and what is responsible. It must start at the individual level and then expand to the community level, and then all of us working together. I'm proud of the fact that we would have empowered a number of child rights ambassadors. We'd have been working with our schools, helping our young children, even those who are in community residences or children home, helping them to understand their rights and their responsibilities, and working with them so that they could craft the message in such a way that other children can understand what are the rights and responsibilities, understand what are the signs of child abuse, and then use them as ambassadors to go out and help us to craft a message and convey a message that says, in Trinidad and Tobago, we want zero tolerance to abuse against our children, zero tolerance to sexual abuse, zero tolerance to neglect, zero tolerance to our children being victims.
You know, Mrs. Webster Roy, I'm going to touch something here that might be a little bit ticklish, but we saw recently where children under the care of the Children's Authority, 5 of them escaped and 2 of them ended up being murdered. At any point, can we say this is child abuse or even neglect?
Okay, Natalie. Again, I want to extend my sincere condolences to the families of those young boys. And again, I will go back to what I said earlier. It speaks to personal responsibility. The Children's Authority has the role and responsibility of ensuring the safety and well-being of the children of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, as to roll out and execute their responsibility, they have to recruit staff and ensure that those persons they recruit don't only have the right skills and training, but also the right temperament to ensure that children in their care are fully supervised and well taken care of. I can't go into all the details of the report. However, what we would have seen naturally is that the Children's Authority would have indicated that they might have had an inkling that the children were considering escaping from the facility, and attempts were made to put measures in place. Were those measures adequate? That is something we have to discuss. But at the end of the day, what we have to recognize that when persons are employed for the care and protection of our children, it calls for an even greater responsibility on the individual level to not look at it as just a job, but look at it as a responsibility of helping to shape the minds and the lives of those children who have entered into your care, because they would have come with a host of different issues. Some might have come with a background of trauma because of abuse, and some have been brought into your care because they might have emotional, psychological problems, and that would have been presented in behavioral issues. But at the end of the day, you are the adult. You have to be responsible. The state, the individual, all of us as adults, we must be responsible and discharge our duty with care to ensure that those children who are placed in protection are given the best care that they deserve and are given every opportunity for a right supervision.
Now, we heard from Claire Guyer-Lane, who is head of the Child Protection Unit in the Police Service, Child Protection and Gender-Based Violence Unit in the Police Service, that from January to March this year, there were 517 reported cases of child abuse. But my question to you is, as a result of the pandemic and children having to be home more so than ever, are we getting more reports, or has the numbers told us that more people are being abused or more reports are being made?
Natalie, and this will be a phenomenon that is not unique to Trinidad and Tobago. We would have seen reports coming out globally where during the pandemic, especially during the period of the initial lockdown, where instances of child abuse, instances of domestic violence on the whole, family violence, would have increased. And that speaks to the problem of us as people lacking coping skills, not having the right skills to cope properly in times of disaster, in times of pandemic. And what it also calls for is for us to put measures in place, and we have been putting the measures in place. During the pandemic, we would have seen the Children's Authority expanding the services to offer online services to children. We would have seen where the Childline would have introduced a Childline app so that children who are at home could reach out and get the support using devices that they have access to get that emotional support that they need. But most importantly, we would have seen where all of government approach towards providing the support for family. So we would have seen where in instances where the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services would have ensured that there's food support for the family through the National Family Services Division, that there's access to counseling, etc. The Office of the Prime Minister would have partnered with stakeholders to ensure that we provide children with opportunities to reach out and get support via online counseling, etc. And we are fortunate in Trinidad and Tobago to have the support of UNICEF in rolling out some of our programs.
Yeah.
We are all aware that our revenues aren't at the levels that we want. However, with the support of UNICEF, we would have been able to ramp up our services to children. And that is something that I am and the government, we are grateful for, that extra support to so that our children have the ability to cope.
Yeah.
Mindful again, if this is not something that's unique to Trinidad and Tobago. We were seeing where reports coming, and we just came out of a period of the UN Commission on the Status of Women, where countries around the world would have reported that they indeed saw an increase in family violence during the initial lockdown of the pandemic period.
Yeah. You know, and I know for a fact that this government has definitely done quite a bit to treat with the whole idea of abuse on a whole, but even child abuse, with the Sexual Offenders Registry, with amendment to the Children's Marriage Act, you know, that kind of thing. And you're telling me about a hotline for children, but are they using that? Are they using the hotline? And what of this, you know, you spoke to us about empowered child rights. Talk to us about that and how that works.
Okay, so in terms of the question about people using the hotlines, yes, the hotlines are being used. And I tend to believe, Natalie, and I might be wrong, that, and I said I might be wrong.
Yeah.
I think that it's not as though we have more people perpetrating violence, but because government would have been responsible in terms of educating the public and putting the resources out there so persons can report and report confidentially and have matters addressed, that more people are now reaching out to access services and support and to report. Before, persons might have been a bit shy and reluctant to do so, but now that they're recognizing, yes, the matter is being addressed, persons are being persecuted, and we know that there's some form of redress that we could have. Persons are calling and making reports, and sometimes even just calling for information, which is quite good. At the Office of the Prime Minister, we have, as I mentioned, we have a Child Rights Ambassadors program. And we use the Child Rights Ambassadors program to empower children to understand their rights, but also the importance of understanding the responsibilities that go along with these rights. And we have used those same children to also be a part of the steering committee that is helping us to roll out the National Child Policy. If your ministry focuses on children, it is important to have children as part of the process. And that is why we have children as part of the steering committee as well, Natalie. So, even though revenues would have been, or income levels would have been low as a government, I want to commend my colleague, Minister of Finance. Every time we would have had a need for us to have additional funds coming to the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, or the Children's Authority, the Minister of Finance would have made sure that we would have had funds to work with. It may not have been all the time at levels that we desire, but we understand that times are hard and we are working within our means, but the Ministry of Finance has always seen it fit to place a priority on the needs of children and ensuring that the services required are fully funded.
You shared some startling,
since 2015 would have had increases.
You shared a startling you shared a startling revelation with us that 78% of people said that they would not report child abuse. What is the Gender Affairs Division going to do to see how they can improve that? Because 78% is majority of adults.
Well, what we are doing, Trinidad and Tobago is fortunate to be a part of the Spotlight Initiative. The Spotlight Initiative focuses on family violence. So what we are doing, we have been working with different agencies, the civil society as well, to help to educate the public. But also, we would have developed a course in collaboration with some of our stakeholders, and it's a child abuse awareness course, and it's offered free of charge. It's available on our website, www.opm-gca.gov.tt. Persons can go on, participate in the course. Again, it's free of charge, it's not very long, and understand what is required, and then use the knowledge that you gain to then go out and educate others. What is required, Natalie, what is important is sustained public education and sensitization plan, and that is what we are doing. The course is just one avenue that we are using to educate the public to bring about change, but also looking at ways that we could partner with other agencies to ensure the public recognize that child abuse is everybody's business. Having everybody speaking the same language, having the media help us to carry that message, having private sector come on board and using that message, even for team meetings, whatever, asking everybody to push that message out there. Child abuse is everybody's business. And for us to understand, we all have a part to play. So that is one of the ways that we are tackling it, Natalie.
Well, definitely doing a good job there, and I want to commend the Office of the Prime Minister Child I never get it right. I never get it right. Gender and Child Affairs. So, Mrs. Webster-Roy, thank you so much for speaking with us this morning, and do continue the work, because as you said, more people, if not even adults, the children are using the hotline, and we're getting more reports of abuse so that we can try to fix the situation.
Thank you, Natalie. Before I go, I really want to thank the staff of the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs. It's a very small team, but passion, dedication, and commitment to children that is always present. I want to just thank the permanent secretaries and the staff for, doing what is best. I want to thank the staff of the Children's Authority. Yes, they get a lick from time to time, but they have been diligently working in the best interest of the children of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Trinidad and Tobago, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure, Ayanna Webster-Roy. Of course, you can hear the passion. They're very passionate about what she does. And she's normally camera shy, but for these things, she'll definitely come out because she's so passionate about it. Were you surprised, though, about that 78% of adults who say they would not report child abuse?
Very, very surprised.
I'm not surprised.
I'm surprised at the amount, at the number, 78%, you know.
In Trinidad, we have a thing where we just say it's basically not my business.
That's what she said, that they're saying it's not their business.
Yeah.
I think child abuse is everybody's business. But
and
that's
the
way
what she's saying, yeah.
You know,
but thank God for that hotline, for the ambassadors program where they can empower children, for the sexual offenders registry, for the amendment to the Child Marriage Act, for the Family Division Court. So much has been done in the last couple of years, for sure.
Yep, that's
All right, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Not later, right now.